Hey, this is Kevin from Kevin's Microfleet. Today I've got a Microgalaxysquadron review. We're going to be taking a look at the Series 10 Starfighter class TIE Avenger. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the figure, at the vehicle, at the packaging. We'll do some measurements and we'll do a comparison. Let's go ahead and dive into the review. So starting out with the packaging, the first thing is we've got Series 10 here on the side. You can actually see this is the international packaging, so it does have it in two different languages. But then we also have our Andor media source there on the top, TIE Avenger there on the bottom, number 217. As we turn this thing around to the back, we get a chance to see the back of the packaging that shows some of the different features of this vehicle as well as the other vehicles that are in the series. And then if we take a look at the bottom, here is the bottom of the package with the UPC if you need that. Here's the card backing and the insert that comes underneath the vehicle. You can see just a generic blue background. Here is our figure. You actually have it inside of this little package. Just pull down in this tab and this blueprint, and then you can go ahead and pop that other tab out to get the figure. Here are the three different versions of Cassian Andor that we have from the Rogue One movie as well as the TV series. So we have Cassian that came with the U-Wing that was from Rogue One. Then we have our Andor Series 1 version that came with the Scout class with a speeder, and now we have this version here in his TIE pilot outfit. And pretty wild to see the difference in this figure. Pretty crazy that for a figure like this and a character like this, that he has three distinct molds already in this series, which is pretty wild to imagine. Now, you can see the detail there on his U-Wing outfit as well as going down to the Scout class. And then his TIE pilot outfit that he has there is actually really, really cool. So I love the red that's on there as well as it does have a little bit of silver. They tried to do a beard on him, which looks, I would say, moderate. It's obviously very difficult to get a beard on a figure that has that shape of the head because they're tampo printing a lot of the details onto the heads. The tampo printing is just kind of like a soft rubbery thing that just stamps it on. And so it's obviously difficult to get that thing to be very accurate. And again, I would say that's reasonable based off of what I would have expected. I would have thought that they would not have done that anyways, but cool that they tried. The TIE Avenger comes with one major accessory, which is this flight stand. Now, this is the same type of ball and socket flight stand that we have had in the past, which you'll see here on the bottom of the Avenger. It has a little socket there to be able to put that on. Now, the flight stand is very short, and so, you know, that's maybe the one issue that I do have with some of the flight stands that come with these vehicles, that it just doesn't display it like it's really flying, like it's getting very high off the ground. But cool to be able to have it. I'll go ahead and plug this in for you. Now, this is great to see that this socket is actually a little better than what they have with the TIE Defender, where it's like a rubbery material and very difficult to get that in there. This one is still pretty challenging to get in there, and I would recommend that as you're inserting it in there, you just be careful because there is a softer material in there and you can definitely break this thing. Now that's all the way in, and you can see it's pretty tight. Doesn't really move around a lot. And then here is what it looks like when it is up on that display stand. Let's go ahead and run through the deco on this, and it is really well done. I mean, being able to see the side of the wings with the different colors that are on the panels, and then also these bombs that are on the inside of the wing look really, really cool to have them sculpted on there. Then you can see again, there's what it looks like from the side. And then here from the back, you've got the two blue engine lights on there, which look really nice as well. And so there are a few different features to this. So you actually have this gun here on the side, which can rotate. And you can actually hear that there is a ratcheting system in there to be able to lock that in place as you move it around. And then on the front here on the cockpit actually opens from this little latch right here on the bottom in between the guns. And so you can open this thing up and it opens up really big. And this is another thing I was unsure what they were going to do with this. You know, were they going to make this some type of vehicle where you would have a play area, or was this going to be a scenario where it was just the cockpit. And you can actually see in there that they do have obviously the seat for the pilot, but then they also have a C-clamp in there to be able to put another figure in, or to be able to put Cassian in there as he's kind of like floating around in space. So this also has another piece here on the back which comes down, which is kind of like a staircase. So it can double both as a staircase as well as a little bit of a landing gear. And it actually does have a little slide in here also. So you can see the groove right in there. So I can slide this guy forward or back. You know, I'm guessing that that just gives a little bit more room to be able to move the figure around inside if you wanted to, or again, to double as some type of a flight stand if you needed to use it. Or sorry, not a flight stand, just like a landing gear. But very cool to be able to have this little piece on here. It's one of the major features of this vehicle is that it does have this giant cab in here, and then you can exit out in the back like he does in the show, which is really, really cool. I want to go ahead and put the figure inside. That way you get a chance to see what it looks like with him in here. So again, pull up on that little tab to open the cockpit. And then there is a little clamp there to be able to put his feet on. So you can see there his feet sit down, and he sits down there pretty good. So with the window closed, you can't really see him in there. There's a little bit of a tint to that, so it's hard to see the inside to be able to see him in there. And then if we go ahead and take him out of his seat and then try to move him into his C-clamp, this cockpit you can see is very loose in terms of being able to hold it up, but should be able to slide him down in there into that C-clamp. Not super easy to do that, and likely even when he's in there, you can kind of see how he's standing. It would be very difficult to use that as a play area if you actually have him in there. So not really sure what to do with that, but it's still cool that they added that in there just for fun. Taking a look at the measurements here, if we're looking at this from front to back, this is about 6¼ inches. It's a lot bigger than I was expecting it to be honest. And then side to side, call it 3½ to the outside of that gun. And then when it's standing, it is about 2½ inches tall. Now, when you put it up on that flight stand, it doesn't make it a whole lot taller than what it is right now. Maybe another inch or so, 3/4 of an inch off of the ground. If you wanted to lift this thing off the ground just a little bit higher than the flight stand that it comes with, I do have this custom 3D printed flight stand on my Etsy shop, which you can find a link for that in the description below. If you wanted to be able to display this in a little bit taller position here, where it is now flying further off the ground. Fortunately, with microgalaxysquadron, we have a lot of different TIE fighters that we can compare this to. So I did want to compare this to a handful of different versions of TIEs that we have. So if we start first with just our standard Series 1 TIE fighter, so you get a chance to see how much bigger the Avenger is relative to that. And it looks really sleek with the wings like that, elongated, really sharp angles. Looks very, very cool. And you can see, obviously, the difference in the cockpit, that the cockpit is much bigger on the Avenger versus the standard TIE fighter. Standard TIE fighter is obviously just a one-seater vehicle. And then if we compare this to the TIE Advanced, Darth Vader's TIE fighter, this is good to be able to see this compared. Again, much shorter on the TIE Advanced, and the cockpit, again, looks much bigger. Then if we're comparing this to our TIE Defender, I wanted to show this just from a comparison of the wing size. So you can see the TIE Defender, obviously the wings are still really long relative to the Action Fleet version that we've got, and maybe even sometimes what we see in the show. But you can see the Avenger, again, still looks really big relative to that. And then if we're looking at the TIE Interceptor, this is the one where it's kind of the ugly duckling maybe of all of the TIEs, because it just seems so oversized relative to the other versions, where this was one where we actually did get a cockpit that's much bigger. And so you can see that that cockpit relative to the Avenger does look much similar. Now, I don't know, and I'm pretty sure that it's not that case, that the cockpit should be that size relative to the standard TIE fighter, but you can certainly check out Rebel Scale. He's got all of the different scales of all of the TIE fighters on there. Finally, I wanted to show this compared to our TIE Bomber, because the TIE Bomber is the only other vehicle that we've got that is actually a starship, or sorry, a starfighter class vehicle. All of the rest of these are all light armor class, which is the smaller version of the line, microgalaxy line. And so you can see there from a size perspective, from side to side, you know, the bomber looks to be, it's definitely shorter, but you can see from a width perspective, they're close to the length of the front to back of the Avenger and the width of the bomber are very close together in terms of their size, which classifies them for the starfighter class vehicle. So either way, this still looks really good. You can see obviously the color comparison of this to all of the other TIE fighters, that it does look pretty good in terms of comparison. It's a little more blue, so matches a little bit closer to what you're seeing there with the Interceptor and the Bomber there on the far right, versus the gray version of what we're getting over here on the left with some of these other ones. But overall, still really good. Amazing that we actually have this in the series already, especially considering the show just came out this year. So very glad that Jazwares was able to jump on the ball and get this thing going so that we could get it out to retail relatively quickly. So that's all I've got for your review today. If you wanted to pick up this vehicle, or if you wanted to pick up any of the flight stands that you saw, you can check out the Etsy page that I have listed in the description below. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and I look forward to catching everybody on the next review.